The Luminarc is one unit that did receive significant buffs in the 3.0 update, and as an Empire fan, it's certainly something that makes me very happy. It was buffed in terms of its reload rate. If you take a look at the unit card now, it now shows that it does more damage, but that's because, of course, all missile damage is shown as damage over 10 seconds, so it does factor reload rate into it. So, for this particular battle, it's me playing Norsca up against the legendary Ice Power, who is, of course, taking the Empire. He's got Balthazar Gelt, and the Temple Hoth Luminarc also had its mass buffed, along with the changes to knockdown. Should make the Luminarc significantly more survivable, and much tougher to pin down with infantry especially, but for the rest of the build here, we've got some swordsmen, Sigmar's Sons included in there, a couple halberdiers, a couple of huntsmen as well, some spearmen in the back, 4 Empire Knights. And that's pretty much it. Gelt, of course, rocking just Final Transmutation. Quite a strong spell right now, especially since he can get lots of magic fast with Staff of Volans. We'll talk more about Balthazar later. I do think he needs a full-on rework, but anyway, got some Marauder Horsemen here on my build. Marauders up front with some great weapons behind. Plenty of Skin Wolves here. We've got 3 Armored Skin Wolves, including the ROR, and Wulfrik the Wanderer, along with a Shaman Sorcerer of Fire just on foot with Fireball and the Burning Head. So, let's get things rolling here. And the Luminarc, let's see if it can actually pop up some shots, possibly even pay for itself. Does have some good targets to shoot at. Wulfrik on the Chariot. I don't know. Due to the way they've changed Chariot models, they're actually multiple hitboxes now. Let's see if it's able to get a solid contact and actually hit Wulfrik. There, it just hits the Marauder Horseman up front, and here, this Marauder Horseman gets the bound net from the Luminarc and just gonna get absolutely pin-cushioned by Huntsman. 1 volley there was enough to actually rout them. 2 volleys should actually just straight finish them off. Yeah, absolute brutality there. That unit is like Rome 2 style Javelin to death. But, you know, with anti-large arrows instead this time. We're going to get the flank attack going here, though, with the Maws of Savagery. Try and bring in some of these other wolves. Get in on the side of this formation, see if we can exploit some gaps. Meanwhile, in the front line, of course, it's just Marauders and State Troops fighting. The classic Warhammer low-tier combat. And Gelt's just chilling up in the air for the time being. Luminarc's queuing up another shot. Will it get good contact on Wulfrik? No, the Skin Wolves block it. A few of their models die. Yeah, 3 models straight up just get killed right there, which is not great, but the Skin Wolves are still able to get through, and the changes to knockdown there, plus Lore of Boats and Burning Head, both cutting through the backline. Wow, that Burning Head just absolutely devastates a full unit of Halberdiers, gets a little chunk off that Huntsman, and then is going to come in and also hit these Halberdiers that Wulfrik had just blobbed up. So pretty lucky on that, but definitely one of the best Burning Heads I've ever seen in quite some time. So felt very satisfying, but Ice Power is going to do a great job responding with his Knights. On my right flank, I try to attack with just the Hounds together to see if we can kind of pull apart his formation. We did do some damage to Spears. Should get an okay engagement on these Empire Knights right now, but Empire Knights are trading very well into my doggos, and it's a very uncomfortable situation. Their armor definitely helps them. Nice Final Transmutation as well from Gelt. It's going to hit the Shaman Sorcerer and Wulfrik here, so a little bit of back and forth right now. It's definitely an absolute scrap for my Skirmish Cav. Kind of mismicroing them a little bit, just letting them get caught up on these low-tier spears, wasting a lot of their ammunition on them as well. Definitely should try and peel them back, maybe wheel up and around this side, try and support against these Knights, and see the Ice Wolves there in the distance getting dragged down by the Spearmen. But one thing that really hasn't been too much of a factor so far is the Luminarc. Because of my mobility and the, Skin Wolves and everything, been able to still mostly shut it down and keep it from shooting too many high-value targets. Most of the damage on Wulfrik came from Gelt, and if we take a look at Gelt's value here, as he charges up another Staff of Volans, almost 1,000 damage value just on that one cast. So, considering how cheap Gelt is, one more good Final Transmutation, and he should pay for himself. But anyway, the Maws of Savagery unfortunately get a little bit singled out. I mean, they do have some supporting Skin Wolves, but all my supporting infantry is far away, which is definitely a mistake for me to take this engagement so far away. I need to pull back to, especially the Marauder Great Weapons would be really good supporting against the Knights in a situation like that. But yeah, another Lore of Boats I'm missing in the back line. If we swing around, looks like it did cut that Huntsman mostly down, but the Huntsman's leadership is good enough. They'll stand and fight, and the Empire Knights bogging down my doggos allows them to just be shot to pieces by those Huntsmen. Then here in the center, the Empire Knights, although Chariots did get mass buffs, I'm not sure about Wulfrik specifically, and regardless, nothing will save him from the nasty final transmutation that Gelt's about to lay down right here. Finish him off. So even if in terms of raw damage value, it doesn't actually do a lot to my build, just, you know, killing Wulfrik outright is certainly enough, and he does run into range of those skin wolves, which then ends up shattering them. So all of a sudden, I'm feeling very bad about my chances with this build, and yeah, a little bit of fireball from the caster there before he routes. Hits the trees. Does not hit Gelt at all, but we'll zoom in, watch my Marauders make their last stand as the Skin Wolves get wrecked by those Huntsmen out in the distance. Pretty smart build overall by Ice Power, even with the Luminarc honestly not doing a lot here because it's still a Luminarc after all. I mean, even with the buffs, it's going to be a little bit clunky to use in certain matchups, especially if your opponent has a lot of mobility. Norsca is certainly a very fast faction with a lot of really good, hard-hitting, fast units, so it's risky to take in this matchup, but against more static factions, it's probably fairly solid. The fact that Throg is also going to be really popular, I think in this next patch as well, means that it makes sense from that perspective to take it in this patch. Unfortunately, it didn't really do anything in this particular battle, but certainly we'll look forward to doing more in the future. Instead, I mean, Gelt got some really nice value there. The Empire Knights and the Huntsmen, more in just a combined arms effort, classic Empire stuff, really. And it does warm my heart to see them performing well. The changes to knockdown certainly benefit a lot of factions. Probably the only faction it doesn't really benefit is dwarfs, like Order Dwarfs, which is kind of hilarious. But, yeah, definitely feels like Monstrous Infantry is better. Despite me somewhat misusing them, the Skin Wolves still did okay. Probably should have taken some more smart engagements, and likewise with the Hounds there, taking that big flank engagement against the Knights. Probably should have just held them back and waited for the Knights to engage. Not really sure, but, yeah, Marauders do a decent job, as always. And then Wulfrik, despite the damage he's taken, also doesn't cost too much to take on the Chariot. With no mount for the Shaman Sorcerer as well, he's pretty cheap too, so both of them are reasonably cost-effective, but just my mobility here, I mean, the Marauder Horsemen and the Doggos are what let me down. Ultimately, my micro is what let them down, but yeah, credit to Ice Power here. We pretty much have gone through all of his builds, so yeah, it's definitely interesting, you know, kind of the changes to mass and how that interacts with a lot of different stuff, from Knights to Chariots, and from the Empire's perspective, I don't remember. I'd have to look at the actual patch notes to see if anything else got mass changes. Maybe like War Wagons, possibly. I think Volkmar did as well. So that does mean those, you know, Chariot. I use that term very loosely because, I mean, only really Volkmar is a functional melee Chariot. But, yeah, it should be very good now with the changes to knockdown and those slight mass buffs. And then, of course, Luminarc, as we saw there, I was mostly able to just get after it with Monstrous Infantry. Like, really, Infantry didn't even get to it, so unfortunately we didn't get to see how it would pull out of them. But I would imagine, you know, light Marauders aren't going to be able to pin it down very well, whereas something like a heavy Dwarf Infantry, right? If we look at Ironbreakers or Infernal Ironsworn at 250 mass, they might still be able to block up the Temple Hoth if it were to dive in the middle of them, which is a terrible mistake if that happens. Something has already gone terribly, terribly wrong somewhere, but regardless, yeah, then for Norsca, I haven't had a chance to play them too much. They're one of those factions that sometimes falls a little bit by the wayside, even though they are very fun to play. The fact they rely a lot on monsters, though, is pretty good for them also with the knockdown change. And certainly Skin Wolves have always been very solid, even better now, though, than they were before. Even like the Ice Wolves, you know, 700 mass, they're big boys. Not too many in a unit, but that mass does help them kind of impact. And then, yeah, the Chaos Chariots as well, Marauder Chariots included, also got a mass buff. They're pretty good, especially if you use them in the right application, but still a little micro-intensive and not totally worth it all the time. But no, it's a pretty interesting one. And of course, monsters also, I mean, I'm not sure, I haven't played with a lot of Mammoth builds, a little bit here and there, but it doesn't seem like they feel too different. from before. Let me know your guys' thoughts below, though, in this patch, if you've noticed a big difference with monsters, cavalry, chariots, any of that stuff. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.